In this video, we're talking about negative entities, what they are, and 3 methods you can use to protect yourself from them in the astral planes. Let's get into it. What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in and welcome back to the 3rd installment in my astral projection series. In this video, we're talking about the controversial topic of how to handle negative entities should you ever encounter them in the astral planes. My first video in this series has reached over 200,000 views already, which was totally unexpected and also totally awesome because I got to see dozens and dozens of you guys in the comment section who had your first astral projection using my method, which is just the most satisfying feeling ever. So congratulations to everyone who had your first projection. Great job, and hopefully there'll be many more to come. But with the huge influx of viewers, there came the inevitable haters as well. I was really surprised to see how many doomsdayers decided to come on both of my astral projection videos and start warning people of the grave danger that awaits them if they astral project. These people seem to think that it is their sovereign duty that everyone who's new to projecting is made abundantly aware of the torture and misery that awaits them in the astral planes at the hands of demonic entities. And this is just absolutely not true. Anyone who talks about astral projection like this is simply telegraphing the fact that they've never actually done it before, or that they're dogmatically religious, or that they're just repeating some nonsense they heard someone else say, or that they did it on drugs once and had a bad experience. This is what any experienced projector will gladly tell you. Do negative entities exist? Yes. Is it likely that you'll ever encounter one? No. It is very unusual for projectors to encounter or be seriously troubled by negative entities because they just don't hang out in the upper astral planes where you're going to likely project. In the astral realm, the simple rule is like attracts like. So unless you are very negatively oriented yourself, then you're not going to project to a negatively oriented astral plane. You're going to project to whatever realm matches the vibratory frequency of your native state of consciousness. Negative entities are almost always going to be found in the lower astral planes of Focus 3. They very rarely ever make appearances in the higher planes of Focus 3 unless they become very desperate. What are they desperate for? We're going to talk about that later in the video. So in order to understand what negative entities are and what their objective is, you need to first understand the law of polarity and how these polarized energies work in relationship to one another. The law of polarity means that every entity you encounter is oriented somewhere on the spectrum of polarity, positive or negative. Every entity exists somewhere on this continuum and is working on acquiring more power by increasing their polarity. You could consider these two polarities the service to others path and the service to self path, positive and negative. Positively oriented beings increase their polarity by loving and serving others. But negative entities do the reverse. They seek to generate fear energy in other beings in order to strengthen their polarity. The more a polarity is strengthened, the greater the power that entity possesses. But it's important to note that just like in our physical world, light is far more powerful than darkness. Even a small match can illuminate a dark room. So in the same sense, the astral planes are filled with far more positive entities than negative. That's because the negative or service to self path is much more difficult to both sustain and acquire power in than the service to others path. The service to self path is lonely, grueling, and requires a relentless amount of selfishness, which takes a lot of energy to sustain. On the other hand, the service to others path is unifying, simple, and liberating. But as we have all experienced, hatred has a kind of sickening addiction to it, much like a drug addiction. And that is the feeling which is required to sustain the negative path. And because of that, the vast majority of beings choose the service to others path. There is fundamentally nothing to fear in the astral planes, and absolutely no actual harm can come to you, any more than harm can come to you in your dreams at night. As the old adage says, the only thing to fear is fear itself. anyone who says that you are simply a victim to negative entities in the astral is either not very spiritually adept or just doesn't understand how these principles work. Negative entities cannot cause you any actual harm in the astral realm. And furthermore, they're not even looking to do so. They're just looking to make you fear them so that they can siphon the negative energy that you emit. And most importantly, they do not have any power over you that you do not give them due to your own ignorance or spiritual immaturity. These entities are a lot like mosquitoes. They're just looking at you as a food supply. They don't actually care about you. You're just a means to an end. They're just trying to mug you. It's not like a horror movie where the evil spirit has some weird fetish for one person in particular and gets their rocks off by tormenting them. So if you are a positively oriented being, which most of you watching this video undoubtedly are, then if they're coming after you, it's just because they're trying to take some of your energy by reversing its polarity from positive to negative. And they do that by getting you to fear them. They are quite literally energy vampires. So what they do is to project some sort of scary image or experience around you in hopes that they will get a reaction from you. And if you react in fear or panic, then you emit an electromagnetic signature of energy. And this energy is going to be of a negative orientation. And that is the energy they feed off of because that is their polarity. So they absorb this energy and become more powerful. And they'll hang out and do this to you as long as you allow them to, but it's all just an illusion. They're just projecting a shadow puppet. Entities cannot possess you and come back to the physical world in your body. The idea that they can do that is utter horseshit. And anyone who wants to comment on this video and say that they can and they know someone who had it happen to them, please provide me evidence of this person. I'll wait. Entities cannot jump into your body and possess it while you're asleep. Anyone who says that they can is just telegraphing their own ignorance. As I described in the first and second videos I've made in this series, you never actually leave your body because consciousness is not located anywhere. You never actually leave your body when you astral project. You simply focus your consciousness to other vibrational densities. Demonic possession is possible, but it's a much more complicated process, and it definitely doesn't happen by simply astral projecting. Furthermore, it's highly unlikely that there's any benefit or desire on the part of the negative entity to possess you and follow you around all the time. They have much bigger fish to fry in the astral realms. What they really want from you is your energy. So like I said, if you are a positively oriented person with any spiritual depth at all, it's very unlikely that you'll ever encounter a negative entity at all. And if you do, it'll be because you consciously projected yourself to a lower astral plane, which is actually kind of difficult to do. Negative entities typically only travel to higher astral planes when they become desperate for energy for some particular reason. It may be because they're trying to outbattle another negative entity for a position of power, so they need to find a bigger supply of energy. Positively oriented beings provide a greater source of energy, but it also comes at a greater risk. Because whenever a negative entity tries to reverse your polarity, they also risk you reversing their polarity. And this is why they prey mostly on the ignorant, because their odds are much safer of making it out unscathed. If you know what you're doing, negative entities are no problem. The positive path is far more powerful than the negative. There's many positive entities in the astral planes, which are commonly thought of as angels or archangels, that radiate such an intensely powerful aura of love energy that even the most powerful negative entities turn to jelly in their presence. So be encouraged in the fact that perfect love casts out fear, and light always expels darkness. So now that you have a good understanding of what negative entities are and what they're trying to do should you encounter them, I'm going to give you 3 easy and bulletproof methods that you can use if you ever need to protect yourself against a negative entity. The first method is this: fly up. Literally, that's it. Just get out of there. Just leave. Because if you're at the point in your astral projection journey where you're even capable of projecting to areas that negative entities might occasionally venture, then by this point you're more than capable of phasing into another astral realm. So just do it. So if you find yourself in a negative area that you don't like, The common sense solution is simply to project yourself away from there to an area of more brightness. When you're trying to project away from a negative area, you always want to imagine more light and brightness, because in the astral realms, perception is creation. Whatever you imagine must be instantly made manifest. So the fastest way to leave any negative realm is to simply imagine a realm that is much brighter and use instant projection to shift there. And if for some reason that doesn't work, then you can literally just fly straight up. And while you're flying up, you want to think positive thoughts about somebody that you love, sing a happy song that makes you feel good, or recite a prayer. Anything that makes you feel positive will get you to a more positive realm. Anything that shifts your vibration from fear to love is what you want. The second method is to imagine yourself being encased in an orb of light. Your imagination is your power, and if you know how to use it, then you are always safe in the astral. So if you ever encounter a negative entity, then you can simply imagine a brilliant orb that's radiating love light energy and forming an invincible force field around you. And if you can do this, you will immediately create a barrier between you and the negative entity. But it's important to remember that just thinking about an orb or saying an affirmation about an orb is not going to cut it. You have to use your imaginative power to create an orb through your mind's eye around you. And if you're doing this correctly, you'll know because you'll literally see it happening. So if you're not seeing the orb being created, then just continue to focus your concentration and visualize it manifesting in front of you until it happens. And that brings me to the third, and in my opinion, the easiest and most powerful method to protecting yourself from negative entities. And if you can do this one method, then any other self-defense technique is unnecessary. And that is to simply love them. That's it. Just love them and send them compassion, because love is the opposite energy from their native polarity. So in doing this, you will depolarize them and do exactly to them what they're trying to do to you. And perfect love always casts out fear, so they will simply flee from you. This will cause them to quickly vanish from your sight, because again, light and darkness are no match. Light always wins, and perfect love always casts out fear. Negative entities are very smart and crafty. They rely on trickery and stealth in order to outsmart you, because they know that they don't stand a chance face to face with a positive entity that knows how to use their power. And your power is love. If a negative entity is in a higher astral plane, it's likely because they're very desperate to gain power. So they're not going to waste their time duking it out with you and risk depolarizing themselves any further when there's billions of other entities that they can go steal energy from instead. Remember, these negative entities are on the service to self path, which means that they thrive off of separation. And love is the energy which dissolves all boundaries. So just like pouring salt on a snail, they literally cannot withstand it. And you might be wondering, well, how am I supposed to feel love for a scary negative entity? And the answer is actually quite simple. Simply realize that this negative entity is actually you lost in a negative identity. Everything is the one creator. There is only one being in the universe, and its essential nature is pure love light. In order to have a finite experience, this creator veils itself and projects its consciousness through infinite layers of vibrational density in order to taste all possible experiences of itself. But as the law of polarity states, in order for anything to be experienced, it must have an opposite. So the creator even plays the role of the negative and all of the suffering that entails in order to be able to truly taste its own essential nature. So these negative entities are actually serving a very helpful and difficult part in this divine play. There has to be someone who plays the villain in every play, and while it never gets as much attention as the hero character, without the villain, there is no hero. Without the darkness, light cannot be known. So simply recognize that these beings have agreed to play a very difficult part for you in order to help you experience yourself. So try to realize that this negative entity is actually you in another form, having forgotten who you are, in order to aid in the expansion of consciousness by playing the negative path. We've all had friends or family who've fallen victim to a drug addiction or ended up on the streets or in prison. And don't we have compassion for them? Don't we want to see them healed and restored? Whether in the astral plane or in the physical plane, my personal method for feeling love towards negative entities is this. Imagine how you would feel towards this entity if you knew it was actually your mom in there who had gotten lost in the negative projection and forgotten who she was. Would you hate her for it? Or would you simply love her in spite of the role she was playing and hope that through that relentless love, she would remember who she is? All negative entities must eventually reverse their polarity back to the service to others path, because it's simply too difficult and unsustainable to progress up the densities of consciousness while remaining in the service to self path. And this is because all is one. Separation can only exist for so long. And so when we recognize this, we begin to only feel love and compassion towards all beings of every type. They are all our brothers and sisters. And in doing this, we carry and radiate the essence of the Creator and protect ourselves from all kinds of evil. And this is the highest form of spiritual self-defense. This spiritual truth was taught by none other than Jesus himself over 2,000 years ago, who famously said, "You've heard it was said in the days of old that you should love your friend and hate your enemy. But today I give you a new commandment, that you should love your enemies. Bless those who persecute you and do good to them, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven."